Welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. My name is Dr. Dieter, and I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to go straight into the presentation. I'm going to make two people co-hosts for me so that um, you guys could help me in admitting people as they roll in. Uh, Shafay, if you don't mind, I'll make you a co-host. And Akeem, if you don't mind, I'm gonna make you a co-host so you can mute everybody
No, she doesn't
who
want to
is
try.
mute everybody who is coming in and help to admit the people who are coming in while I get the show rolling. Thank you guys for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about how most of the chronic medical conditions that we face are rooted in reversible metabolic dysfunction, what I call energy deficiency. Um, okay. Okay, here we go. So my name is Dr. Wave These are my board certifications. I'm a board certified internist as well as a board certified pediatrician. And I want to take you guys through some science about how the chronic medical conditions that we face today come from metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction is just a simple fancy word to say energy shortage or energy deficiency. And that energy deficiency comes from two things: insulin resistance and microbiome dysfunction. Those two things cause an energy deficiency, and the energy deficiency then results in the disease process, the energy deficiency. What I want you to understand is that the definition of disease is a cell that is a cell is a malfunctioning of the cell. So simple definition to define a disease is a cell that is malfunction. Why does a cell malfunction? The cell malfunctions because it lacks energy. So metabolic dysfunction, the energy deficiency, now results in all of our chronic diseases. And we now have convincing science that says that there are two things that sit at the root of this metabolic dysfunction. One, insulin resistance, the other, microbiome dysfunction. And I want to take those two things one by one and dissect them and help you understand. First, what is insulin resistance? To be able to understand what insulin resistance is important to understand what insulin does in the first place. Insulin is a very, very critical hormone. It sits at the peak, at the pin, at the top of our survival in terms of insulin dictates the function and structure. I consider insulin to be hormone numero uno in terms of importante. Why? Because insulin helps to produce energy. So, to understand what insulin resistance is, let me help you understand what insulin does in the first place. So, the job of insulin is to do this, is to mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. So when we eat, the end product of absorption, end product of digestion is absorption, end product of absorption is glucose. That glucose is now released into the blood. When the glucose is released in the blood, insulin's job is to cause that glucose to be mobilized into the cell. When glucose gets mobilized into the cell, it is shunted through the mitochondria, which is considered the powerhouse of the cell, and goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain, with the end result being the production of an energy molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That is energy. So that's the job of insulin. Very, very important. So without insulin, we cannot make energy. So insulin sits at the pinnacle because of that. So that's the job of insulin. ATP is the energy molecule. Every cell in the body requires energy to function. Every cell makes it makes tissues make organs make systems. Every cell requires energy to function. What then is insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is when you now have a breakdown in this process. Anywhere in this process where there is a breakdown of glucose, of insulin mobilizing glucose into the cell so that energy can be produced, ATP, we say you have insulin resistance. Now, I want to explain how the breakdown occurs. It's important to know because then you can understand how to fix the problem. If you have a car and the car breaks down and you take that car to the mechanic first has to figure out what happened, what caused the breakdown before they can fix the problem. So how does the breakdown of insulin resistance occur? It occurs in two processes. The first process in which the breakdown of insulin resistance occurs is something we call too much fat. Okay, just simple as too much fat. Too much fat. That's the first way in which the breakdown in insulin resistance occur. And then it now leads to the second part, too much insulin. I want you guys to pay attention here because I'm going to camp out here for a little bit because it's going to, yeah, understanding this on this, it helps you understand the mechanism of how we now reverse these issues. So too much fat. How does too much fat and too much insulin cause insulin resistance? Too much fat is no bueno, too much insulin it's no bueno. This is what happens. We need fat in our bodies as an alternate source of energy. 80% of our energy source is glucose, but the other 20% is fat. The body always resorts to burning fat during periods of low energy. So we need to store fat. But when we store more fat than we're supposed to store, it becomes problematic. Normally, a cell is supposed to look like this, okay? Now, when you consume excess calories, those excess calories are usually converted into fat. When those excess calories are converted into fat, the body takes that fat and stores it into cell. I'm just going to do a replica of this cell. This cell is normally supposed to look like this. But when you consume excess calories, the body takes those excess calories and now stuffs those excess calories in this cell. And that is no bueno. Why is that no bueno? That is no bueno for the reason that the cell, the main the function of the cell is to take off glucose from the blood, right? So normally when this cell is normal like that, when you have glucose in the blood, insulin is gonna instruct the cell, hey, I have glucose in the blood, take up that glucose. Now you now have a cell that because of excess fat in the cell, it occupies all this space that glucose has to come in. So when insulin now comes to this cell and knocks on the door of the cell, knock, 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 hey cell, I have glucose in the blood that I want you to take up so that energy can be produced. The cell tells insulin, I'm sorry, I have no room in the inn. I don't have any place to bring its insulin and it refuses to take up. I don't have any place to bring in glucose. It refuses to take up glucose. Glucose now does not enter the cell. If glucose doesn't enter the cell, you do not produce energy. A breakdown in that process, insulin resistance. Now, what happens is when this cell closes its doors and tells insulin that it cannot take up glucose. Glucose accumulates in the cell, in the blood like this. And what this cell is doing is that this cell is trying to protect the cell from excess energy. I call this cell a fat-laden cell. This cell is acting like somebody that has had too much to eat on Thanksgiving Day and is Thanksgiving stuffed. If you have ever felt Thanksgiving stuffed, and you're like, oh man, I feel sick. I've eaten too much. When you have that feeling, the last thing you want to do is put anything else in your mouth. Even if that anything else is your favorite thing in the world, is the last thing in the world you want to do. This cell is feeling like it has had too much Thanksgiving. It is so full, it is grossed out by the thought of bringing in glucose. So it tells insulin no, and glucose accumulates in the cell. Now, there is a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose and the amount of insulin that is produced by the pancreas. So this now leads to the second way in which you develop insulin resistance. Because you now have too much glucose circulating in the cell, it causes the pancreas now to produce a high amount of insulin. So too much insulin, too much insulin. Too much insulin is no bueno. Remember, I said insulin is good, because it dictates the structure, the functioning of the whole body, the cell. But when you have too much insulin, is a problem. Think about is insulin, as I said, as being that CEO of the company that dictates the structure and functioning of the company. If you have a boss, a CEO of at work, that all of a sudden he comes to work one day and he's acting crazy, unreasonable. He has gone cuckoo. He's backing out unreasonable demands. He's being a tyrant. shoving people left and right, saying you're going to do this and going to do this my way or the highway at my time, what have you. It unsettles the employees. And when that kind of relationship or that kind of bullying uh, um, approach by the CEO causes the employees to lose their respect for the boss. When the employees lose the respect for the CEO, it makes it harder for the employees to do what the CEO asked them to do. If I have a boss that I've lost my respect for, it's harder for me to do what they tell me to do. The same thing when insulin is too much. When insulin is now riding too much in the blood because of the high amount of glucose that has triggered insulin to be high, one-to-one relationship. That insulin is now acting like a bully to the cell, a tyrant, an unreasonable CEO, shoving the cell here and there, making unreasonable demands. The cell loses its respect for insulin. When the cell loses its respect for insulin, it's harder for the cell to do what insulin demands of it to do. And what's the number one thing that insulin demands the cell to do? Insulin demands the cell to open its doors so that it could take up glucose. So when the cell loses its respect for insulin, the cell closes its doors and doesn't take up glucose. When the cell closes its doors and doesn't take up glucose, what happens is that glucose further accumulates in the blood. And that is not good. When glucose further accumulates in the blood, it goes back and triggers the pancreas to produce even more insulin. So if this too much insulin was not much, it produces even more. You think about too much insulin as a boss who was crazy at this level and raises his craziness level or his tyrannical bullying behavior to this level. When that happens, the employees of that boss lose even more respect for the boss. In the same light, the cell in the setting of a higher amount of insulin circulating, bullying the cell even more, the cell loses even more respect for insulin and clamps its door down even shorter, even tighter, causing a further worsening in this process. You guys see where I'm going to? That further worsening goes back to this and worsens insulin. It's just a process, a vicious cycle over and over again. So that's how you develop insulin resistance by number one, too much fat, and number two, too much insulin. Too much insulin. Now, keep that in mind because you're going to see how the solution which I describe later fits into this. And when you have insulin resistance, what happens is you now have a slew of diseases. Remember, insulin helps to secure energy, ATP. By insulin causing the cell to take up glucose, energy is produced. I define disease as a cell that has malfunction. And the number one reason why a cell malfunction is the lack of energy. The lack of energy, ATP. When you have insulin resistance, you're going to have a slew of these diseases. And this slide is not exhaustive. Unfortunately, I cannot find a slide big enough to put all the disease conditions that exist in the world that are linked to insulin resistance. So there we have it. The second is what we call dysbiosis. Remember, I said that in this very first slide that the two main things that are the center of metabolic dysfunction, which is energy deficiency, insulin resistance, and microbiome dysfunction, or what we call dysbiosis. So to be able to understand what dysbiosis is, let's understand what the microbiome is, first of all. So in our colon, we have in our large intestine, there are about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria in our large intestine. Those 30 to 100 trillion bacteria in our large intestine are called the microbiome, okay? They perform several functions, help to break down fiber, help to protect the gut from pathogenic bacteria. And one way they do that is by producing a very special fatty acid called a short chain fatty acid. a short chain fatty acid. The short chain fatty acid goes to strengthen and keep the walls of the colon strong. The walls of the colon are joined to each other, one after the other. Think about my knuckles, as a barrier point. This barrier point right here, my knuckles, right here, it's called the tight junctions. These short chain fatty acids, go and help to maintain the strength of the tight junction to keep the colon strong so that weakness doesn't open up in the colon and bacteria seep into the colon through the weakness. The microbiome also help to shape and regulate or train the immune system. You may be surprised to find out or to learn that 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. The other 30% resides in the bone marrow, the lymphatics, the lymph nodes. And the microbiome, this 30 to 100 trillion microorganisms, their job is to shape and train the immune system to respond in a normal way. And a healthy way that the microbiome does this, a healthy training of the microbiome to the immune system is to say, hey, if you see so and so bacteria, I want you to shoot it. If you with this bullet, if you see these other bacteria, pull out the grenade. Now, if you see this other guy, he may look like a bacteria, but he's in camouflage. He's not bacteria. He's one of us. He's one of the body, the tissues of the body. Don't attack it. Don't shoot it. That's what a healthy microbiome does in terms of training the immune system. Now, when your microbiome is unhealthy, it trains the immune system in an unhealthy way, and by so doing, it causes the immune system to be trigger happy. The immune system has its finger on the trigger. It trains the immune system to shoot first, ask questions later. So how that looks is like, hey, you see that guy, that bacteria, he's a bad dude. Take him out at the first snuff of anything. You see that other guy that he's in camouflage? If he just looks like a bacteria or acts like a bacteria, shoot first and ask questions later. So what that happens is now the immune system is now so hypersensitive. Anything that it just has a slightest suspicion that it could be a bacteria, even if that thing is in camouflage and it is part of our body cells, it now shoots it down, and attacks it. And that's how autoimmune diseases develop when the immune system is trained to be hypervigilant. And lastly, the microbiome helps in the synthesis of B vitamins and K vitamins. Now, what then is dysbiosis or microbiome dysfunction? The organisms in the gut that live in equilibrium, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. Good bacteria, and bad bacteria 50-50%. We say you have dysbiosis or microbiome dysfunction when the good bacteria proliferate, outnumber the bad bacteria. Sorry, the bad bacteria proliferate, outnumber the good bacteria, and the good bacteria are suppressed. So that's dysbiosis. And when you have dysbiosis, all of these functions of the microbiome become compromised. And when they become compromised, they lead to diseases. And what causes dysbiosis? The lack of adequate nutrition to these organisms in the gut. Every living organism requires nutrients. A lion in the jungle and a bacteria in a gut, they all living organisms, they all require nutrients. And the nutrients to the gut is fiber. When there is enough fiber in our diet, there is enough food to go around for the good and the bad. Things are happy. When there is not enough fiber in our diet, survival of the fetus sets in. The bad bacteria in survival of the fetus mode hoard all the food and kick out the good bacteria. And when you have that imbalance in the population of the bacteria, you have diseases like this. And you see a lot of autoimmune diseases on here. Hashimoto is an autoimmune, lupus is an autoimmune, MS is an autoimmune disease. Even celiac is an autoimmune, a trigger happy immune system. You may be surprised to find things on here like anxiety and depression. And I was surprised when I learned about this myself. After understanding that's 90% of the hormone or the neurotransmitter serotonin. 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. It then made sense why people who have dysbiosis have depression. The other 10% of serotonin is produced in the central nervous system. So the other slide I want to show you guys is a slide that I call the metabolic sequence of inflammation. It starts with insulin resistance. If you have insulin resistance, there's fire burning in this house. Okay, there's fire burning in this house. Insulin resistance results in metabolic dysfunction, energy shortage. That energy shortage then results in injury to the cell. Free radicals are produced, these blue things. It injures the cell, and the injury to the cell causes the cell to cry out to the immune system, and the immune system deploys an inflammatory response to the cell. When the immune system deploys an inflammatory response to the cell, it's supposed to come and contain whatever is going on to calm things down. And then think about an inflammatory response, as an acute action that should calm things down. The inflammatory response comes to the cell, and it realizes that it comes and tries to solve the problem. But what it's seeing here in the cell is that it's seeing smoke. It's not seeing fire. The real cause of the problem began 2 houses away at insulin resistance, spread to metabolic dysfunction before it spread to the cell. So it's trying to fight a fire in the cell that the fire does not exist, whereas the fire is 2 houses away. And because that inflammation is not successful, the inflammatory response is not suspected, the immune system is triggered again to say, hey, this problem has not been solved, come help us. The immune system triggered again, it goes back and causes more inflammation. So you have a process where inflammation is begetting inflammation, and the core of the problem, the fire, is actually 2 houses away. And then that results in diseases or symptoms. Think about inflammation like a chronic, slow burning fire in your body that is supposed to normally turn off, but it's just on and on and on. And dysbiosis, as well as insulin resistance, contribute to the metabolic sequence of inflammation, causing energy deficiency. The good news, ladies and gentlemen, is that there's now reputable science that if you reverse the insulin resistance and reverse the dysbiosis, you can reverse the disease condition. And it's that simple but profound. If I have a car that was going on the road, I was driving my car on the road, and all of a sudden I ran out of gas. The car's gonna stop. Why does the car stop? The car stops not because there's an intrinsic failure of the engine, but the car stops because its power source, the gas, is gone. When the car stops because its power source is gone, if let's say I'm 5 to 10 minutes away from the nearest gas station and I walk to that gas station, buy a gallon of gas, pump gas in that gallon, go back to my car on the side of the road, and I put gas in that tank. When I put gas in that tank and I sit back in the ignition, and I turn on in the driver's seat, and I turn on the ignition, that car is gonna roar back to life again. You get that beautiful Why? Because the problem that the car had was an energy problem. It never had an intrinsic failure of the engine. It is the same as the body, guys. When we run out of energy, when our body runs out of energy, right, this disease is now going to play. When we reverse that energy deficiency reverse that energy deficiency, the diseases that came as a result of that go away, just like that car roared back to life again, just by giving the body the energy it required. And there is now a solution for that. And I want to introduce a nutraceutical product that I learned of as a physician early this year in March. And if there are any of you guys who have any medical background, these two products are listed in the PDL, the Physician's Desk Reference, PDL, and they are nutraceutical products. When I will say nutraceutical, it's a product that is made 100% from a plant, but in addition to nutritional benefits, has way more health benefits than nutritional benefits. And the two products in here, one of them is a product called Unimate, and the other is a product called Balance. Both of these two products actually help to reverse insulin resistance and reverse dysbiosis. Let's talk about the Unimate first, the first product. It is made from a plant that is native to the South Americas, Colombia, Brazil, Argentina. And it is rich. The name of the plant is called the yerba mate plant. Yerba mate plant. And this plant is rich in a very special phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. And what chlorogenic acid does is that chlorogenic acid goes, remember the process, this process that I talked about how you develop insulin resistance. Chlorogenic acid causes lipolysis, which is fat burning. Um, Fat burning. What happens is in the Unimate contains this chlorogenic acid, and chlorogenic acid causes you to burn fat. Now, remember that the way you develop insulin resistance was a cell that was filled with fat. So when you consume the Unimate nutraceutical, it goes and causes the burning of fat because of chlorogenic acid. That cell that had a lot of fat in it now becomes free. It now becomes free, and the glucose that had accumulated in the cell is now able to get into the cell. Now, because the glucose that accumulated in the blood, sorry, is now able to get into the cell, because the glucose now gets into the cell, what happens is the concentration of glucose goes down. When the concentration of glucose goes down, the high amount of insulin, which was acting as a bully to the cell, that CEO that had gone cuckoo because of a one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin. When glucose concentration fall, high insulin falls to low insulin. When insulin becomes low, it's like a CEO who goes to a crazy boss who goes to his employees and say, guys, I've been a jerk for the last 1 or 2 months here. Please, will you forgive me? I'm sorry for how I treated you and what have you. Oh, it's like a bully, who has been bullying children on the playground and shoving them around, and he comes one day with a humble head to the playground and says, "Hey, I know I've been, bullying you around. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." The employees of that boss immediately gain their respect back for the boss and say, I forgive you. Or the children on the playground say, okay, this bully is gonna be humble and say, I'm sorry. They forgive the bully, and they can now walk with him. It's the same as a cell. When this insulin now is now low in the cell, it's like a bully that has become humble, a boss that has come asking for forgiveness for being a jerk. And the cell say, you know what, I can work with insulin now. The cell now regains its respect for insulin and opens its door. When it opens its door, more glucose could flow into the cell, reversing the process of insulin resistance. And that's what that does, because the Unimate fosters that, because of the major ingredient that it contains, chlorogenic acid, which helps to cause fat burning. Now, the other product in this nutraceutical combination is this product called a balance. Balance is just fiber made from 5 different plants that has been blended together. Fiber actually does exactly the same thing that the Unimate does in terms of how it reverses insulin resistance. It causes lipolysis, burning of fat, frees the cell of its fat. The other thing that fiber does is that fiber helps to decrease your glycemic index. And why does fiber do that? Fiber slows down, I explained to you, fiber slows down the digestion of food through the colon, or transit of food through the GI tract. If food is supposed to move through the GI tract by this speed, fiber causes food to move through the GI tract by slower speed.
I just want to do a time check. So we're at 30 minutes in. So I know you're
Okay,
gonna keep science
okay,
down to 30 minutes.
okay, all right. Causes it to go through. Now, what happens is that when you have when you have insulin, when you have fiber slowing the amount of glucose through the GI tract, what it does is that it slows the release of glucose into the blood. And I'll explain it to you like this. If you had two situations, let's say you and I went to a restaurant to eat and we went to eat lasagna, and you ate your lasagna without consuming fiber, your blood sugar is going to do this. And me, I maybe that blood sugar is 180. And for me, I know a thing about fiber. I know that this product contains fiber. What I do is I take in my balance. When I take in my balance, what it does is, and then I eat the same plate of lasagna. What it does is, instead of my blood sugar spiking like that, my blood sugar is going to go is going to go to a lower amount, and that lower amount is because of the blunting of the blood sugar by fiber. Now, when you have a high amount of glucose, your pancreas is going to produce a commensurate higher amount of insulin to deal with that. So your pancreas may produce 20 units here, whereas my pancreas may produce 5 units. I want you to think about the 20 units and the 5 units as high insulin, the boss that had gone cuckoo, and low insulin, a boss that is humble. The lower your insulin, the more your cells are receptive to insulin to open its doors. The higher your insulin, the more your cells are not receptive or respect insulin because it's acting like a bully or a tyrant. And that is how fiber has a huge effect on your insulin, on your glucose profile, and helps in the reversal of insulin resistance. The last thing is that fiber helps to reverse dysbiosis. It is food to the microbiome. Remember, I said that the microbiome needs fiber for the organisms to live in harmony, top the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. Unfortunately, we do not consume enough fiber. It is estimated that if you're a man, you need to consume 38 grams of fiber a day. If you're a woman, you need to consume 25 grams of fiber a day. The NIH estimates that men and women in the US are consuming an average of 10 to 12 grams of fiber a day. So fiber is very important in, our microbiome function and important in insulin signaling. It's no doubt that all these diseases are rampant because our foods are so processed. So I'll end again by saying that because of the science of because of the evidence that reversing insulin resistance and reversing dysbiosis can cause a reversal of your chronic condition. The news is good. And if you suffer from any chronic medical condition related to this, by restoring that energy deficiency, you could reclaim your health again. And I am going to now pass on the uh, talk to Amory to help moderate and just show us some testimonies of people who had suffered from some of these common diseases, and with the use of the Feel Great system have been able to gain their lives again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dieter. That was very, very helpful. I love this talk. And one of the things that I want to look at is show you some proof of people who have used this system and the protocol. We have at least one person here that's going to talk about their specific real life story, which is really insightful. I'd like to show you a couple of pictures of people who have used the system, and I'm going to start. I'm going to start with our speaker. This is Dr. Dieter on the left. This is going to be before he had discovered intermittent fasting. So, young guy, belly fat, eating a lot of starch in his diet. The second picture in the middle is 5 years of intermittent fasting and jogging on a regular basis. And the difference between the black jacket and the pink jacket is just 2.5 months using the system. That is how quickly people can change. It looks like a different, it looks like he looks like a teenager here. It looks like a younger person. You're going to see this theme. Everyone who uses this ages backwards. They look like they are 10 or 15 years younger when using this. Dr. Kinney was, went from a hospital bed, very sick with insulin resistance. This is 32 days apart. 32 days between this picture and this picture. Looks like a different person. This one is our friend Kimberly Fletcher. She 60 days between this picture and this picture. If you looked at this person, they're unrecognizable when people consistently use this system for 90 days. This is only 60 days. And then, sorry, I forgot to warn you. I'm going to have Keith talk a little bit. So I'm actually going to go back to Keith and his foot wound, but I wanted to show you these the finger changing here. You can see inflammation gone in 3 weeks, detoxification using that. So if you're a child and you look like this, there's relief. This is our friend Angelita. She is a medical professional. This is her transformation. You know, she can tell you this is not a weight loss product, but you saw how she toned her body up. The main thing that caught her attention was that in this picture, she had been on antidepressants for a significant period of time after she lost a child. It couldn't imagine life without antidepressants until she found the system, and it took away her anxiety and depression off for the first time in almost a decade of anxiety, depression medication. So we see a lot of mental health changes. Your gut tells your brain how it feels. Jimmy is a person who basically had everything. He had a like a lump in his thyroid, got talked into having surgery to have his thyroid removed, where he popped type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction from all the meds that he was on. When he started using the system, this gentleman was working as a bartender and he used the protocol. He still went to McDonald's for lunch and McDonald's for dinner. He reversed type 2 diabetes even with not a great diet. And he is completely off of diabetes medication, no more blood pressure medication, resolved erectile dysfunction in his testosterone. Feels like $1 million, looks totally different life. This is Jonathan Scott. He's an NFL, retired NFL football player, lost 52 pounds in 50 pounds in 50 days, essentially. He had psoriasis all over the back of his head, all over his neck, and had been suffering from the skin issue for so long. It was such a big part of his life. He actually became the president of the Psoriasis Foundation because he knew what a struggle this was to experience psoriasis. He is completely free of psoriasis for the first time since he was a teenager with this. Here's what that looks like. This is Claudia. We just happen to have pictures of her psoriasis. She was in her 60s, had had psoriasis that she was in her like late teens and 20s. And for the first time in her life, using this system, she has clear skin. She added omega-3s and I think vitamin D and was able to clear this up with this protocol. A1C, so type 2 diabetic of A1C of 14, which is a clear diabetic, has reversed, went into pre-diabetes, and now she's has reversed diabetes. This is a nurse in Texas. Another reversal of type 2 diabetes, A1C from 12 down to 4.8. No more blood pressure medicine. IBS since he was a teenager. No more IBS after a week. Acid reflux gone, migraines gone, insomnia gone. Down 2 pant sizes, off meds. Got his mother using the system, got his mother out of reversed type 2 diabetes for his mother, pre-diabetes for his wife, and reversed type 2 diabetes for his mother-in-law. Reversal of type 2 diabetes off of 8 to 9 meds, lost 40 pounds, brain fog, aches and pains gone. This is about 3.5 months. When Dr. Marla was on this cruise, she was walking with a cane. So a year before she found the Feel Great system, she was walking with a cane up and down the stairs. She saw this picture. She looks like her Aunt Mabel, felt like an old woman, and she cares for a 42-year-old child who has a brain injury. So it's important that she has her health. She started on this system and got rid of her long COVID symptoms, normalized her blood work, cholesterol, blood pressure, and she just looks like a different person. Now she goes hiking almost every day, no cane, and is living the life of someone who's 20 years younger from this. When you lose weight with intermittent fasting, you don't end up with this hanging skin. This is because your body uses something called autophagy. So it actually uses your cells, it uses your skin as a fuel source. In the absence of sending it glucose or carbohydrates, your body uses stored fat and extra skin as food as your fuel source. And so you'll see Cody, this is 6 months between this and this, completely clear. This is 6 months. also stopped his craving for alcohol. So Cody now has been 18 months sober after having a drinking problem for most of his adult life. He's now sober, which we see when you take away the sugar addiction, people often lose that craving. So you can see this significant, this cannot be comfortable to live like this. He was able to get rid of that belly fat, significant. You look at this 4X clothing, on the verge of just a man waiting to have a heart attack, to extra large, regular size clothing afterwards, 65-pound weight loss, someone at 55, so post menopause. This is my husband, how we discovered this, belly fat down. This is about 3.5 months, and this is 3 years on the system doing fasting workouts 3 times a day and doing three times, not 3 times a week, lifting weights, but he's lifted weights his entire life. And this is the first time he's been able to build muscle mass like that using the system. So people worry if I'm fasting that I'll lose my muscle. And I can tell you from experience that's not the case. So belly fat gone, PCOS resolved after 20 years of PCOS, 2 months, no more PCOS. And this baby, this is me, this is not my baby, but the mother of this baby, Chelsea, had been diagnosed with PCOS when she was 18. She was now 28, and for 4 years they'd been trying to have conceive a baby. They had some miscarriages, a lot of loss, and then on the system, 4 months on the Feel Great system, and she got pregnant and brought this little baby, adorable baby Sam to term. So people who use it consistently get consistent results, and we know that it works. I want to bring on a real life person. I kind of jumped over his picture, and because I like to give people a little warning, I still find it alarming, because I feel like I am a rocket scientist, so I did not come from a medical background. So I feel like understanding the impact of type 2 diabetes is, a video presentation, it's something else. But when you know someone, my friend Keith here went through this. He died from type 2 diabetes, and he was resuscitated, put through ICU, and came back. I'm also gonna bring on my colleague here, Dr. Tiffany, to speak as well. So, Keith, you were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in your 30s. You were on insulin. So the 25 years ago, you were on insulin for 90% of that time. When you started using the Feel Great system, how long did it take you before you did not need insulin any longer?
2 days. I was on 108 units a day for most of that 25 years. I obviously getting more and more as the years went on, but um, on day two, I was off all insulin, and everybody questions, well, your doctor didn't take you off your insulin. No, but you take it by testing your blood sugar literally 4 or 5 times a day. And if your blood sugar is not a certain level, you just don't. Normally, you would go through, yes, your doctor, but um, for in the case of insulin, you test it. You know exactly when and you are and aren't supposed to
And
take it.
you'd been a diabetic for 25 years, right? So this was not new to you. You understood
Yeah,
what
this.
reading equals this number of units. As
Yeah, exactly. Um, and I before I found the system, I was on 15 meds. I weighed almost 300 pounds. I couldn't walk when I came out of the hospital. I had AFib. I had uh, retinal bleeding issues. And I was, for lack of a better way to put it, I was a hot mess. And I didn't think I was going to be here in 2 years. I was in a pretty dark place. And I didn't even realize some of what tied to insulin resistance than that I do now, like the depression. On day one, I started feeling happier. My energy shot through the roof. Day two, I was off insulin, 100%. Haven't gone back since. Um, Within the first 2 months, I lost over 65 pounds. I've lost almost 11 inches on my waist. I feel, and I guess 20 years younger easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
When Keith and I first met, which was, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, I embarrassingly like mistook him for a 60-year-old man. And I thought he was like 65. And when he told me how old he was, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Now you look your age. You look like you're your age and you're being younger all the time as we go. And I'm just gonna go back to this foot ulcer because this is what diabetes looks like. This is a like a tiny foot wound that started like a blister that manifested into an open wound because your body is not healing wounds when you're struggling with type 2 diabetes. Dr. Tiffany can explain more to you why that is. But the main message is that you are getting shots. I want to just kind of take you back to this, getting shots in your eyes. In your eyes, you're getting like injections in your eyeballs so that
correct.
so that you could still see
Right.
in your
And since I've been on the protocol, my eyesight's actually
okay.
excuse me, my eyesight's actually improved. Um, my eye doctor said he hasn't seen my eyes look this good in over 4 years. My cardiologist is ecstatic. She can't get over how good my lab worked. My foot doctor is now passing this along to his patients. Um,
Completely transformed. So that's what's so powerful about this system is that someone like Keith, who literally was gone and got brought back to life, would have been gone if someone had not shared this with him. And maybe you're not a type 2 diabetic. Maybe I was not that sick. But when I really get an understanding of what this can do, it's amazing. Dr. Tiffany is a double board certified physician as well. Dr. Tiffany, will you just talk a little bit about why would a physician, you don't have to be a physician to do this. Keith, what do you do for a living? I don't even know. I talk to Keith all the
I
time.
am actually disabled because of the autoimmune disorder I got in 2018, which is Guillain-Barré, where my body attacked its own nervous system, and it screwed me up pretty bad. I couldn't walk. I had to sleep in a chair. I was in pretty rough shape.
Yeah, what did you do before that? When you did work, what did you get disabled?
I was in corporate America. I did a lot with steel framing.
Hmm.
Early on in my years, I did construction worked on heavy equipment.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I learned something new. Yeah, so Keith, when you don't have to be a physician to do this. You just have to be able to share. You don't have to have this amazing story about how you almost died, which I did not. But Dr. Tiffany, tell me a little bit. Why would a double certified medical professional like yourself in family practice, holistic care, why would you do this? Why would you share this? Why would you do this for a living? Tell us what got you into it.
Right. I mean, coming after Keith, it becomes obvious. So for 20 years doing private practice urgent care, I didn't see people get ulcers in their foot and come back from that. Unfortunately, what I did see is I saw a lot of people with ulcers and amputations and now wanting to make the changes. Not the 20 years before when I was telling them, okay, we need to be doing some things. Yeah, your sugars aren't bad now, but I don't want you to get there. They weren't hearing me. They couldn't latch on to those changes. So I actually ended up getting a board certified in lifestyle medicine to help them manage their symptoms without needing prescriptions was my goal. But still, people needed something consistent that would allow them to be uh, sustainable, allow the changes to be sustainable. And so that's what these products gave to my people and allowed them to actually make the changes they need to make. Gave them the willpower, allowed them to believe they could. I literally had a patient that told me when I diagnosed her with diabetes, good luck in trying to get me to stop eating sweets, cookies, or crackers, as if I'm the one that's going to get the hole in my foot like Keith, or the amputation, or the heart attack, or the stroke. And so there's so many people that still feel like they're addicted to these things, can't even see how they can stop doing them. So once I met Anne-Marie on social media and she started saying, this might actually help, I gave it a try. I was able to get off of my blood pressure medicine, help my brother get off his insulin, his Trulicity, his metformin, help my mom with her MS, now start to be cute again in her heels because she couldn't. She was dragging her leg around. Now she plays pickleball when she wants to. So Who wouldn't want to say something about that? And this is what I do now. I left traditional medicine to be able to do this, coach and help people be on the fun side of medicine as opposed to the doom and gloom, hole in the foot, amputation, heart disease, stroke side of medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story. Off blood pressure, medication yourself, complete transformation. Oh, and Yvette is sharing from a customer. Okay, I thought Yvette was sharing her story. Yvette is saying from a customer, well, she has a customer had stomach has sunken and waist gait was reduced, had new holes in your belts. We hear that a lot. Had to get new belts. One of the side, there are no medical side effects for this, but you're gonna have to buy new clothes. Your pants, your old pants are gonna be too big. I sleep better when my sleeping comes true. I truly ready for bed. Yeah, obviously I would struggle to fall asleep before. Gained energy back and less tired. The frequency to the toilet has improved before some people like constipated for 2 days after you ate. And incredible. So if you're here, there's no denial that the product works. Anyone who uses it consistently gets a consistent result. Some people, metabolic health is different for everybody. Some people like Keith have blood sugar drops right away. We have another gentleman who went from a fasting blood glucose of 834, which should have been stroked out, but he did not, down to a glucose of 90 in 107 days. So we see people move pretty quickly. But we also see some people that nothing, but they might use it for 6 weeks and they're like, well, I don't get it. What is happening here? By 90 days, consistent use, everyone can see something going, they can see improvement. And the manufacturer gives you a 90-day money back guarantee. So you're able to use it. And people say, how much is it? The product costs $5 per day. We talked about the little sachets that are used to do the system. So this is what it is. It's $1.70 per packet. So $1.70. I'm skipping breakfast. I normally would have spent $6 on breakfast. Instead of that, I'm spending $1.70 on this. I have another one before or after lunch, and then I have one of these with dinner. And so I personally am saving a couple $100 on groceries, eating out. Dr. Tiffany and I were working together this week, and I was so hungry before I ate, but I was drinking Unimate in the morning. I ordered this big salad and an appetizer because I thought we were going to sit down and eat. And we both took ate half of this delicious salmon. And we're like, I'm full. So we're not overeating. I can't remember the last time I stuffed my belly in a way that I did not feel good because I was able to just push the plate away. We are looking for people to share this because someone will hear Keith's story and they'll say, I want to do it. Someone will listen to Dr. Dieter, someone Dr. Tiffany, someone me, but people resonate differently with different people. And so we need your voice in sharing this to reach people. We're trying to unpharmaceuticate. We're trying to unpharmaceuticate North America. That's what our objective is. So if you were here and you're curious about well, how did I get started? My background, I worked as a chemical engineer for 27 years. This was introduced. My husband found it. He told me about it. I called the person who told him about it and said, why is my husband melting and not snoring? And he can walk up and down stairs when he had arthritis pain level 10 in his knees. And now he's leaping up and down the stairs and he's playing basketball with my kids in the driveway, in a couple weeks. What happened? And the person who introduced me to it at the time was making $100,000 per month doing this business. I didn't know anybody in my circle or any place else that had made $100,000 per month. And he said, I'm looking for people who are looking for something. I'm showing people how to do what I'm doing. I was like, I feel like my life was supposed to be different than working at a desk all day for a 1.8% raise in competition with my colleagues in corporate America. I would love to learn. I would love to reach people. I would love to put my head on the pillow at night and think, oh my gosh, I saved Keith's life. The work that I did gave Keith another 20 years with his family. That seems more meaningful to me than what I was doing, entering estimates of how many missiles Finland is going to buy in the year 2030 for no one to look at. This has been an exciting life. So I want to share a little bit, like, how did I get into it? Like, what does it look like? And how it works is, if you are someone who wants to share this, you can, as a customer, you can become a customer and you can share the product. You get a $10 referral every time you share. As a partner, which is what I am, every time someone buys a Feel Great kit, which is $159 per month, I make $25 on each of those orders. But as a franchise order, I have a customer, Bob. When Bob shares with Sue, Bob gets a $10 store credit, and Sue shares with Joe and Jill. Sue gets a $10 store credit for Joe and for Jill each month that they order. And I would get a $100 commission for all of this, even though I only met Sue. And what happens from a residual income, I also have a team. I've taught people how to do what I'm doing. I saw Dr. Tiffany on Facebook. I said, hey, you're talking about the same thing I'm talking about. Would you like to see what I'm doing and see if this makes any sense for you as a way to earn residual income? And when Dr. Tiffany talks to people, maybe I'm sleeping, maybe I'm doing something else. But when she sells the product, I earn between $5 and $10 on the boxes that she sells for 3 levels deep, and then down to 12 levels. I get paid. So this means, like, generations. If Dr. Tiffany's mom also works with us, so when Dr. Tiffany's mom gets some customers, then I'll get paid on that. And then she has some friends that she works with as well. And so this is how the team building works. We have a 10 customer model. So when you come in, this is what a Feel Great kit looks like. You'll have 2 boxes of Unimate and a box of the fiber, and it comes with the bottle. And the concept is, like, I would use one myself, and then I'd sell 9 of those to recoup my investment. That means my friends, people in need, people I know who have brain fog, menopause issues, low testosterone, belly fat, they're just tired and they're not feeling good. They have high blood pressure. My mother-in-law got off of 20 years on high blood pressure medication. In 3 days on the system, she has not needed any more blood pressure medication. She lost 15 pounds. So, like, my mother-in-law, we want her to live longer. That would be a person that I would sell one of these boxes to. And then she helps me recoup my investment, which is $1,549 for those 10 boxes. Once I join the franchise, what that means is that I get a custom link. The company, the manufacturer, based in the United States, has been around. The leadership's been in place for 30 years. The CEO used to be a partner, so he did that. He was the top person for 15 years, bought the company, and has been a CEO of the company for 15 years. It's privately held. He's a billionaire rancher that lives in Wyoming. And his whole organization does the order fulfillment. They have the back office, all of the IT that's in place, and then customer service. So they have a team of customer service people that handle all of the orders and anything that someone needs related to payment. I don't touch any of that. And what our team provides, what I provide, is a proven system of duplication. So on my team, I'm a 7-figure earner. I have been in this business 3 years. I have 7 people now that make 6 figures on my team. And then we have a proven duplication system, a product and business mentoring, weekly training by some $1 million earners that are a couple times a week. We have a private training academy. We have customer coaching and support that's readily available. And we have a social media masterclass to learn how to be on that forefront of social media. Like, right now, so many people are making money on social media. Maybe you've been curious about what it is they're doing. So when I sell those 10 boxes, I get those people get on subscription. That's $250, and then I teach 5 people how to do what I did. That's $500 a month, and they teach 5 people. That's $2,000 a month plus reward trip qualification. We're going on a cruise in November for free. I'm bringing my brother, my parents, my family, I have 4 kids. My kids are coming. And then when we teach 5 people to do that, that's where we get to the, $8,000, $100,000 a year. I 10x'd that in 3 years if that's something that you're looking for. But we teach people how to work in this space in a different way than they've worked traditionally. So that's what we have for you tonight. We're so glad that you have joined us. If you have any questions and want to ask them in the chat, we do. Oh my gosh. I say, oh my gosh, this thing. We have testimonials where anybody had a stroke, they're on the protocol and have improvements. Yes, we do have many, but specifically James Davis had a stroke, like was kind of non-functioning, right? He hasn't been able to work. He has transformed his life so much. I mean, had slurred speech. His speech is better. When he just traveled this last weekend, he had his driver's license. He's been using the system for 4 months, 5 months. His ID was not recognizable by TSA because he was so transformed. Like he didn't look like the same person. He's able to get his brain function back. We talked about the MS, the limping leg. Dr. Tiffany's mother from MS was like dragging her leg behind her. Now she can wear heels. And that if someone has had a stroke and they've been sick for a while, it's not like they're going to wake up the next day and feel better, but over time, over months, we are seeing people get more clear-headed with improvement. Claudia's just talking about migraines gone, more energy. That's a huge one we hear all the time. People who have had migraines for as long as they can remember, sometimes since elementary school, no more migraines. Yeah, Jennifer says she's off statins, anxiety, sleeping meds after 16 years, no more menopausal belly. Love handles, amazing energy, and tinnitus, joint pain gone. So if you do have questions in the chat, we have just a few minutes. We're going to wrap up. If you would like to know anything more, we'll make sure that you get the recording. If you are interested in trying this, reach out to the person who invited you. If you're interested in finding out more about how you can join us on this mission, even join us on the cruise. There's still availability to get on the Royal Caribbean cruise in November 8th through the 12th. That's going to leave out of Orlando. We're still able to have people qualify for this all expense paid cruise. Dr. Dieter, anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, I'm just gonna add that this is a mission that we would like to get as many people to be a part of. Not many people know about this, and the more we're looking for people to partner with us, we're looking for more partners, more distributors, because the more partners we have, the more reach we have. The more reach we have, the more people we can impact in our communities, in our world who are sick. And so I got on this mission with Amory because it is a mission worth fighting for. It is a good thing to do, to help as many people to be able to reclaim their health and reclaim their life. So if you've listened to this and this seems like something virtuous for you to embark on to help, we are looking for people to join us on that mission to help us stretch our reach as much as possible to impact the life of as many people as possible. And this is something worth doing. This is something worth taking a look at. So we want to just encourage anyone who resonates with this kind of work for humanity, or work for your community, that you can do this and change the lives of people, and at the same time do this and earn a handsome reward. So we would love for you guys to join us. And if this sounds like something you would love to do, please reach out to whoever invited you. I say this, healthcare is slowly going this way. More and more people are beginning to open their eyes and ask the right questions. Why am I on medicines and I'm not getting better? And with more and more people are beginning to realize that there is something else, and when they realize that there is something else and find this, they cannot give it up. When they have experienced health that they have never experienced before, they cannot give it up because you can't put a value on your health. And they are willing to invest $159 a month to buy this nutraceutical product to keep their health, at what it is. So because of that, there is an opportunity to be able to look at this as a good business venture, because people prioritize their health. So we want to thank you guys for being here, and we would love for you to partner with us. And if any of this resonates with you, please reach out to the person who invited you to partner with us. Thank you much. Emery, that's it.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much. We'll close out. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you. And I will have the recording of this available. Just reach out to whoever invited you.